Hey everybody, it's Steph Mischuk from Killer Sites, Killer PHP. It's been a long time since I've done a video blog post, I suppose. So I figured I would get into a couple of things that are in the news lately. Well, what's in the news lately is this thing called Bitcoin. Now, if you're not familiar, Bitcoin is basically a digital currency. People run the Bitcoin program, which will basically crunch a bunch of numbers and come out with an answer to an equation, and this answer is considered the Bitcoin. And people are going wild for Bitcoins now, meaning that there are these open markets out there and people are buying and selling Bitcoins, and the price of Bitcoins has gone parabolic in the last few months. Like everything that goes parabolic, whether it be stocks, houses, or whatnot, people will come up with all the reasons why things have shot up in price so much. There's always reasons. People always believe it, and then eventually things will correct. Correct is a nice word for a crash. So let's compare that to other famous and previous bubbles that we've seen. So I've got this chart here from a great site called Zero Hedge, and here we have previous famous asset bubbles. So this is a South Sea Company bubble from 1719 to 1722. You see its value just shot up like crazy, and then it crashed and went down and went well below its original price. You see the same thing with tulip bulbs. This is the famous asset bubble that I've read about and been aware of for a while, where people basically valued tulips, those flowers, more than houses at one point. And in fact, some rare breeds of tulips sold for more than the price of a manor house. And at the time, between 1634 and 1637, people had a lot of reasons as to why these tulips were so valuable. Everybody said, wow, tulips, you can't go wrong with tulips, and everybody went crazy. And of course, you see what happened. They hit a point, and then people realized all of a sudden that they were just tulips, and they crashed. And you see the Nikkei, which is the Japanese stock market. Again, it hit its peak in 1990, I believe, and it's been crashing for the last 20 years. And you could see it's not quite where it started back in the 1970s, but we're back at the 1980 evaluations, and I think it has a long way to go still. So let's look at Bitcoin, see how quickly it's jumped up. Like, it's gone totally parabolic, and kind of looks like these three charts as well, right? If you look at how quickly it's gone up. And of course, as with the previous asset manias, the tulip bulbs and the South Sea Company, etc., people have their reasons. They have reasons that they use to explain why the Bitcoins have shot up so much. And, you know, at some level, some of the reasons may seem credible. And I think the reason Bitcoins have shot up so much is because people are basically very nervous about all this money printing that's going on around the world. They're worried that the governments are devaluing currencies, and so they're looking for something that is safer. And that's the big irony here, because Bitcoin is anything but safe. When you see any asset shoot up like this for no good reason, you know that you got an asset bubble. Now people say, well, there is a reason. There's a demand for Bitcoin and it's limited. The problem is that, as I point out in this article, there's not just Bitcoin. There's Litecoin, and there's a whole bunch of other virtual currencies out there that are pretty much like Bitcoin. Well, they are like Bitcoin. And the only reason that Bitcoins are going up in value is because people perceive that they're going to go up in value. That's the nature of this asset mania phenomenon that we're looking at here. So why is Steph from Killer PHP, a nerd site, you know, a nerd blog, talking about Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is a computer algorithm. It's an open source product, and so it's kind of related in that sense. I've been a programmer for many years, been running little businesses for many years, so I have a perspective with regards to technology and business and so on. At the end of the day, what I think the big mistake I think people are making is that they are conflating the value of Bitcoin and Litecoin and all the other cryptocurrencies out there, all the other digital currencies out there. They're conflating the value of the system surrounding Bitcoins and how you can create a Bitcoin or a Litecoin and how you can transact in them and so forth. They're conflating the value of that system with the coin itself, well, the Bitcoin or Litecoin, as if Bitcoin or Litecoin have something special about them. They don't. In fact, they don't at all. The thing that's special about Bitcoin and Litecoin is that they are an expression of a very interesting system. And I think at some point in the future, governments will adopt this system or some variation of the Bitcoin and the Litecoin system to be able to more freely distribute a currency. Bitcoin and Litecoin are not real currencies because they're not backed by anything. And they're extremely volatile. And people say, well, they're backed by the community. Well, the US dollar has much more backing than Bitcoin will ever have. And that's because the US dollar is backed by the US economy, the biggest military in the world, the US military. And it's actually, the US dollar is backed by every other government in the world because most governments have the majority of their reserves in the US dollar. So they don't want to see the US dollar fail. And there's a bottom or a base to US dollars because the US government collects all its taxes in US dollars. So if you own real estate in the US, then you have to have US dollars to pay your taxes if you want to hold on to the real estate. So to say that the US dollar has nothing behind it is ridiculous. On the other hand, Bitcoin, nobody needs Bitcoin, and there's truly nothing behind it. It's a pure speculative tulip mania style asset bubble. One day, I don't know when, people are going to realize that Bitcoins are just numbers, because that's all they are. They're just numbers. As Max Kaiser would famously say, they are precious numbers as gold and silver are precious metals. The difference between Bitcoin and gold and silver is that gold and silver are actually tangible and they're actually used for something. They're used in production. Bitcoins are used for nothing except to buy and sell things. And of course, there's not too much of that. Most of the Bitcoin action is all about people wanting to get rich quick, which is crazy. So there you go. That's my take on Bitcoin.